I'm going to hunt him down.
50 years ago this day, the Reverend Martin Luther King was gunned down in Memphis, Tennessee. His assassination sparked flames and rioting all over the United States of America. 50 years ago, the greatest of all black revolutionaries in the United States was murdered, was assassinated. It has been a long arc in those last 50 years. When King was murdered, he was being shadowed by the United States Secret Service. He was being bugged and burgled. He was being traduced and blackguarded. He was being insulted and subverted. Now, even President Donald Trump has to tweet in his memory. Martin Luther King has been sanitized over the decades. They have tried to reduce him to a kind of later period Nelson Mandela. But the Reverend Martin Luther King was a revolutionary, all right, and that's why they killed him. They killed him because he had begun to fuse three strands in the great struggle in the United States in the 1960s. His civil rights work has stood the test of time and led ineluctably, you may say, to a president in the White House itself. But he began to fuse the work for racial equality in the United States with two other highly combustible issues. First of all, he made a dramatic turn against the Vietnam War in 1967. In 1967, when the United States was losing literally thousands of its own young men and killing literally millions of the young men, women, and children of Indochina. When Martin Luther King came onto that battlefield, the deep state in the US knew that they were facing formidably reinforced battalions of anti-war activists. The moral force, power of the Nobel Peace Prize winner, the Reverend Martin Luther King, was a formidable and new enemy in the anti-Vietnam War campaign. But perhaps most particularly, and I say that knowing that few of you will know of it, and some of you who know of it may not support my conclusion. But the reason that King was in Memphis was because he joined the class struggle too. He joined the great garbage collector work strike in Memphis, where thousands of Memphis, Tennessee workers, white and black, were out on the streets, locked out by their ruthless, racist employers. And he said, as I've quoted here before, when asked by a journalist why he was mixing up his campaigns, bringing up communistic, socialistic themes of class oppression on top of the racial oppression story he'd been telling for so long, he said, some men say things because they're profitable. Other men say things because they are popular. I say things because I believe them to be true. And King, we remember this evening on the 50th anniversary as the greatest of all mass orators. I can do a turn at the platform, on the podium, at the microphone, but nobody could do it like Martin Luther King. So we'll be talking and marking that 50th anniversary, which falls today, and has been marked, as I say, without irony, by a tweet from President Donald J. Trump himself, a man in the front line of the racial division in the United States itself. James Whale asked me just before I came on if I thought things were better in the United States today than they were in 1968 when King was murdered. And I said no. And I'll argue for the rest of this show that the situation for black and minority ethnic communities, populations in the United States is worse today than it was back then. We'll be talking too about Alan Sugar. What's the connection? Well, when I read out his words last night, which my colleagues through the glass had put up on my screen, I hadn't quite understood and grasped how portentous they were. Jeremy Corbyn is a very dangerous man, said Lord Alan Sugar. Britain has got to get rid of Jeremy Corbyn. 3 times he repeated it for emphasis. And I'm asking if the parliamentary authorities, if not the Metropolitan Police themselves, had better not interview Lord Alan Sugar as to what exactly he meant by that. How could Britain get rid of Jeremy Corbyn? What do these words mean? What can they possibly mean? You mean like the white trash in Memphis, Tennessee got rid of Martin Luther King? Is that what you have in mind, Sir Alan? Because if it isn't, you better explain exactly what you did mean. Or some of us will conclude that your remarks were an incitement to hatred and violence against the leader of Her Majesty's opposition. And on that subject, I turn to Guido Fawkes. Now, Guy Fawkes was a man who literally went to the stake. He was hanged, he was drawn, he was quartered, he was burned. Guy Fawkes had the courage of his convictions. Guido Fawkes, on the other hand, is a gutless coward whose lieutenant last night undertook in a solemn and binding agreement with me to come on this show this evening to talk about the cesspit that is the Guido Fawkes news site. A cesspit suppurating. If you look at the comments underneath their stories, it will turn your stomach. If there is a collection of racist finks any more toxic anywhere in Britain than on the pages of Guido Fawkes, I wouldn't myself like to see it. But he didn't show up. He didn't show up, and he instructed his minions that they were not to show up either. Not prepared to talk to me, he said. But in fact, he's just a gutless coward. He's not prepared to talk to me because I would have, metaphorically speaking, torn him limb from limb. He's in the front line of the whole of the mass media's assault on the aforementioned Jeremy Corbyn, which, as I predicted here just the other day, has overreached itself, has begun again to backfire. Partly because the British don't seem to like a sustained witch hunt, partly because the British quite like an underdog, but largely because the people doing the witch hunting are revealed daily as the witches themselves, the venal and the foul. Which brings me to Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson is a political arsonist who has gone around the world setting fire to British interests, to the safety of British people, all the way from the jails of Tehran to the streets of the upcoming World Cup in Russia 2018. He lied. They're trying to obfuscate that now. But I played you yesterday the actuality, and it's all over social media. You can watch his lips moving. You can hear him lying. Well, there is an alternative situation, I suppose, that the top scientists at Porton Down are the liars. But if you believe that, I've got a garden bridge here, which cost a great deal of money, though it never was built. No brick was laid, that I can sell you for a tasty price. Boris Johnson has reduced Britain to a laughing stock. Donald Trump has jumped ship, leaving Theresa May and Boris Johnson on the burning deck. The German government is in the process of jumping ship and have said they prefer evidence to solidarity, as well they might. So we make no excuse in covering this story again tonight, not least because if you're listening and watching to Britain's state broadcaster, you will hear virtually nothing about it. Boris Johnson, the Skripal affair, Russiagate, it's all coming up. Now, I turn, last of all, to a story that has unusually saddened me today. Not just because I had become used to rubbing shoulders with him, literally in this building, on this floor, in the tea room I have just left here at Talksport Towers. Ray Wilkins passing at the age of 61 from a heart attack has saddened everyone who loved football and everyone who loved broadcasting about football anywhere in the land. At 61, still looking handsome and spry, Ray Wilkins is no more. We shall not look upon his face again. We shall not hear his dulcet tones again. We shall not benefit from his wisdom, his analysis of football and those who play it, who manage it, the practitioners of that noble art of football. And for those of a certain age, like myself, Ray Wilkins was not just a man of class and style on television, on radio, in real life. When he was on the pitch, he was a paragon of class and style. He was a player like few others, a player who in a later era would have been worth many hundreds of millions of pounds, a man who oozed class, who oozed ability. He was a footballer who was educated and informed in an era when few others were so informed. And the news that he is no more is devastating, of course, for his family, out to whom all of our hearts here in this building go, but out to whom from all over this land, from Italy, from Spain, from all the places he graced, and I mean graced with his abilities, people are shedding a tear over the demise of Ray Wilkins. All of that is coming up over the next 3 hours. Tonight, tomorrow night, Friday night, and then again all week, every night, next week, only on Talk Radio.